Celtics Stuff Live.
Welcome to Celtics Stuff Live on the CLNS Media Network, the leading online provider of audio and video coverage for your Boston Celtics, who just completed a sweep of the Indiana Pacers. Lots of confidence for the local media heading into this series, except for yours truly. John was very confident, and here we are on Easter Sunday. John and I are recording later in the evening after the Celtics complete the sweep. Obviously, Milwaukee's got a game to play tomorrow, and if they complete their sweep, there'll be a couple of days off, and then the Celtics will have to face the number one team in the Eastern Conference with the man who received the torch from LeBron James, Giannis Antetokounmpo. Did I get that right? God,
not at all.
I suck at that. Giannis Antetokounmpo. I got that.
Kumpo, but close enough.
Kumpo. Man, why do I suck at that? Either way, the Greek Freak, which is my go-to move when I reference this player, the Greek Freak really has taken the mantle in the Eastern Conference for this season. I'm not saying he's done nearly enough to fully take it, but they established themselves as the number one team in the Eastern Conference. He gets to take 4 steps just like LeBron James does. He gets to create offensive contact, and the league absolutely is in love with him. And it's going to be a difficult fight for the Celtics. But before we start looking ahead to the Milwaukee Bucks, let's talk about what the Celtics did right against the Indiana Pacers, who obviously without Oladipo were struggling in a little bit of a disarray to close out the season. That's what led to a lot of the confidence. I said this series was going to go 7. Obviously I was wrong. Even with the absence of Marcus Smart, the team was able to step it up. And you, on the other hand, wanted to say sweep and wound up saying, well, they'll take 1 in Indiana, so I'll say 4-1. You were obviously, John, much closer than I was in predicting the outcome of this first round series. I think the part that was the most encouraging for me, and I want to say Jaylen Brown, and as much as I want to say Jaylen Brown because the defense and then the game 3 performance offensively, really, I mean, for all intents and purposes, not missing a shot and being the high scorer in the game was phenomenal. But I got to go to Hayward. And the reason I got to go to Hayward is the fact that here's a guy who was finishing the season strong, but a lot of times that's kind of a false sense of optimism because some teams wilt down the stretch. They're already kind of checked out mentally and ready for the postseason, especially depending on where the seeding is kind of landing. I know with the Miami Heat, they had something to play for to close out the year. But Hayward's strong performance to finish the year has actually played out in the postseason very well, and specifically in Game 4 as he knocked down 2 very critical 3-pointers and has gotten a lot more aggressive attacking the basket. And this is all really good signs for the Celtics because they really needed that second shooter that they could just rely on knock down a 3-pointer. Never mind the fact that, you know, Brown can do that in games, but Hayward looked super confident in Game 4.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think Hayward is the X factor. He's the reason that I think you can look at these Celtics and say that this is a very different Boston Celtics team than the one we saw in October, November, December, January, February, most of March, and really even most of April. I mean, this is a team that we all expected it to be. This is a team that closed out Game 3 and Game 4 with the Erotic City lineup, the lineup of death, you know, East Coast, the whatever you want to call them, the Horford and 3 switchable wings and Kyrie Irving on the court. A big reason that works is because Gordon Hayward's on the floor and he looks like Gordon Hayward again. And, you know, it's whatever you want to say about Miles Turner dunking on his face. He also got him back on a bogus that should have counted despite a bogus.
Oh, you mean the and one? And oh, yeah.
Dude,
the officials were horrendous in Game 4.
So
horrendous.
And Game 3.
Yeah.
I mean,
I saw your tweet during Game 3.
I know.
Like, God, the officials are just totally taking the wind out of their sails. But see, that's kind of the whole thing in the postseason. And that's why I said it would go 7. I felt like the Celtics were rusty and the league loved 7 games. And quite honestly, as you mentioned with the refs in the last two games, they certainly did their best to try to extend this series out. But the Celtics rising above that and playing above it, especially the way that they closed games 3 and 4 defensively and offensively. The ball movement at the end of game 3 was probably one of the most encouraging signs, and it got better for the most part of game 4 too, not just down the stretch, but just throughout the game, better passing. But you're right. I feel like the Celtics got robbed, and especially Hayward, not just on that one occasion. There were a couple where it was almost like these weird phantom-y fouls. There was an offensive foul on Jaylen Brown towards mid fourth quarter, maybe around the 6-minute mark. That was so curious because he didn't push off or anything. Like, I still don't know what that call was supposed to be.
Yeah, well, it's been. I couldn't even tell you. I couldn't even tell you, and that's part of the problem with the national. I was unfortunately subjected, as you often are, to the ABC feed, the ESPN feed, or the TNT feed, because I was out of the area. Internet situation wasn't good. I couldn't stream, so I'm watching.
Wait, you were driving home. Were you watching on your phone?
No. Today I was home. I saw it
you
today.
made it home. Okay, good.
I've been in front of a TV. I haven't been on a screen. I've been in front of a TV, for most of the time. And, they, it's just like, the problem is that you don't get that same kind of feeling of the referees, and credit to Tom Heinsohn, of course, in making us all super hyper aware of this. But man, the stuff they missed. I mean, today, the foul on, the flagrant foul, when Joseph kind of goes over, through, I suppose, Tatum's head. There's a question. That's a flagrant foul. Of course it's a flagrant foul in 2019. But anyway, I don't want to get off track.
Or how about the one where he's pulling Kyrie Irving to the ground with him, and Kyrie gets the foul on the block, but the block was clean, and then they pull him down and actually could have hurt him. At the very least, that's a double foul. One's a technical, and maybe he got a little bit of hand, but he didn't get the elbow, and the hand is part of the ball. Like, that was actually, that chase down block was a clean block. And then, and I think it was Joseph, no, it wasn't. It was Collison. Collison definitely grabbed Kyrie and was pulling him towards the ground. I mean, he stopped, so it wasn't horrible, but it's that initial pull when Kyrie is at his, apex of his jump that's the most dangerous.
Absolutely. No, that's very true. And we saw a number of different situations where, I think that kind of bared itself out, that really, they missed it. Not only did they miss it, but they missed the flow of the game. It's either too technical and they're so concerned with making a rating, or they're just missing the flow of play, and I don't know how you fix it, but right now it doesn't feel good in terms of how the officiating, how the flow of these games are going. Part of that may be the opponents aren't great. They aren't great teams, but also the problem is you're so hyper aware of the feeling that they're trying to dictate a storyline. They're trying to say, oh, let's keep Indiana in this a little bit. We got to.
You better buckle up for Milwaukee, bro, because this, especially on the road through the first 2 games, you're going to lose it. You're going to have a coronary. This one's definitely going 7 because it's the premier matchup of the second round. I think all the matchups, East, Western Conference, both, this is the one everybody's going to be keeping their eyes on because it was the team that was supposed to win the Eastern Conference against the team who did win the Eastern Conference. And, we'll still see how the injuries impact Milwaukee's play against the Celtics, but I still don't feel like we've got an answer to Giannis Antetokounmpo.
But we're not, right? I know.
We're not going to have an answer. And it's almost like, but let me just say this, just to tie it. I'm not ready to go to Milwaukee yet because we'll have a break and all of that stuff. I'm not ready to go to Milwaukee yet, but just to say, all they have to do is let him go off, because what I loved about Brad Stevens in the first 4 games and what I love about the playoffs is he mentioned the practice, and the practice is really helpful, and they went back to the basics on defense and blah, 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 blah. But the fact that they get to game plan from game after game after game, this is where I think he really has a chance to earn Kyrie's respect. This is where I think that relationship grows, is in the postseason, because of all the little subtleties and adjustments that they'll make. And I think that's key. And just keep that in the back of your mind for when they start to hit Milwaukee, because I feel like there's two strategies. One is throw everybody at Giannis, and then the second strategy is let him do whatever he wants to do and just keep everybody else in check. And that's really the two different ways to play that for the most part. And then it's who's going to guard him. And if they do double, are they going to go with somebody like, maybe they have Jaylen Brown try to take the hardest matchup again, and then they have Kyrie bring the double and try to swat the ball away if Brown can kind of slow the motion into the paint. So, but what do you think, just with that being said, what adjustments did you see from Brad Stevens and the Celtics in the Indiana series that really, that's shown true for you as that's really the biggest key, is that they can make the necessary adjustments in the playoffs?
Well, I think you go back to on the road, in front of a hostile supposed environment. Where did Brad Stevens turn his eye? He turned his eye towards the Erotic City lineup, the three wings. It was Morris on game 4, but it was Jaylen Brown in game 3, and joined by Hayward and Tatum, Kyrie, and Horford. And those were the lineups that closed out games. That's what Celtics fans have been clamoring for almost 2 years now, is to see that team on the floor together and see what they can do.
And how much of it is just Hayward being better now, that it doesn't cause the dynamic that it caused at the start of the season, right?
Sure.
And I saw a really interesting dialogue between Keith Smith and Danger Cart talking about, and this was, I think, over a week and a half ago before the postseason started, but I thought of it just as we were talking about this, but they were force feeding minutes to Hayward when he clearly wasn't ready, whether he wasn't physically ready, whether he wasn't emotionally ready, whether he wasn't in game shape, whatever that part of the debate was, where was really the meat of it for them. But how much of force feeding those minutes did have an impact, and this was Danger Cart's point, on just the chemistry of the club. And now that he's playing well, it's like it's totally fine, right? Because he's getting big time buckets. And so, winning cures all ills, and so does any type of success for a player.
Oh, it totally does. No, and I think that's why you stay with him. That's why Brad Stevens is Brad Stevens, and everyone who questioned him, and they are out there, and we all know it. Those folks need to shut their yap, because you need to be, this is why we do this. I remember the start of last season, when you and I were talking about, what's going to happen, where this is all going to go. Tatum hadn't played a game and all this before the injuries and all. And, I was saying, geez, I'm unsure, because I don't know what these young guys can do when you're trying to put it all together. And of course, I was completely wrong about last year. But I was right in that this year, the young guys had a hard time fitting into the core with so many people. And so you had that on top of the fact you had Kyrie, remember too, coming back from injury, Hayward coming back from injury, so much instability. Hayward needed safe spaces. He needed confidence. He needed someone throwing him out there.
And Kyrie needed the ball too. And Kyrie had to have the ball in his hand. And
they all did.
And they tried to share the ball. And, you and I can get into that a little bit here in the postseason, but we definitely will. Hey, just a reminder, everybody, you can follow Celtics Stuff Live on Twitter at CSL_tweet live, as well as your host. Follow me at CSL_Justin. John is at CSL_Duke, the entire CLNS Media Network at CLNS Media, Facebook.com/CLNS fans, and download the CLNS Media app for iOS and Android. Simply search for CLNS Media in your app marketplace. YouTube.com/CLNS Media for high definition, full length locker room interviews, the Garden Report, the Roundtable, and yours truly, Celtic Stuff Live. Find it all at YouTube.com/CLNS Media. So, John, just kind of continuing on that thread before we get to the Kyrie stuff and all that, the chemistry's coming together. One guy that you felt as Hayward was getting better down the stretch was somebody that was really, their value was completely dissolving down the stretch and was having maybe an impact on chemistry. Somebody who had been inserted into the starting lineup and has since lost their spot in that lineup. And we're not talking about Marcus Smart, who got injured. We're talking about Marcus Senior, and he sad to bring that back. And so Marcus Morris Sr. is a guy that you've criticized immensely, but he had a great role, not only in game 3, but definitely in game 4. Well, both games, a big hand, in kind of lifting the Celtics up off the bench. But, game 4 was one where they really, really got contributions from the players off the bench. But what's your take on Morris, and do you like the way he's playing, or do you just like it because he's hot again?
I know what I like about, because he was horrendous in game 2, I believe.
Absolutely.
Not good. 0 for 8, I think. No, what I like about Marcus Morris is he's playing a role. He's playing the role that he should have been playing throughout this season. He played well enough today. He deserved to finish that game today. I'm all for rewarding who plays well. If Terry Rozier, who has played well in several stretches through these.
He's loving Marcus Smart being injured right now.
He's
getting the minutes. I mean, not because he's glad that Marcus is hurt, but he loves the minutes and he loves the stage. And this is the playoff Terry that kind of carried into last season that dissolved during this season again.
But I think what's important, he's making an impact in his time. You know what I mean? Like, he's taking 20 minutes. He's at 22 minutes, and you felt him on the floor, and not in a negative way.
Couple of hard drives to the basket, a defensive steal. Absolutely.
Defensively, he's playing good hard defense. He's playing 94 feet in a lot of cases. He's making them feel him for 94 feet, which is really what they're going to need him to do against Milwaukee. But I like what Morris is doing. I like the fact that he's the third, fourth guy catching the ball instead of, a guy who's the second catch and then he's putting the ball up. I mean, I think there's just a better flow to how this whole thing is going. And as that guy on the bench, it's perfect. It allows everything to kind of find its place. And, by having him share a lot of time with Hayward, Hayward's moving the ball. I mean, Terry is playing a bit more of a facilitation role. They're really not having any moments without Horford or Kyrie on the court. So even if it's stagnant, it's Kyrie getting those buckets. So it's their high efficiency. Or if he's not in there, and that's largely when Morris is in, that's when you've got to have, Horford out there who's moving the ball a little bit more. So I think it's great. The rebounding's good. His defense has been good. Again, not a great game too, but that's okay. I think as long as he's pushing the reserve role, and they played 8 today, Tice with just a handful of minutes in the start of the second quarter, or the end of the second quarter. I think that's a good good rotation for them to stick with. The question is, what do you do when Marcus Smart comes back? You're 2 weeks now since the injury today. 3 weeks would be probably a game 2-ish, maybe. It doesn't sound like he's been running, so it's going to be at least another week, maybe 2. We're going to be maybe on the further end of that 4 to 6 or 3 to 5, depending upon who you believe on their timetable. So they're going to have to do some part of this series, maybe a game, maybe 4 or 5 games without Marcus Smart. The rotation works now. Will it work as well, when we get into that Milwaukee series? That will be when they have to kind of find some minutes and shoehorn him in. It feels like those young guys have a bit more time to find their flow, to find their balance, and it seems to work well. One other thing I'm just going to add, just on this, and we're kind of talking about this. There was a period of time in the game today where you had Horford, Tatum, Hayward, Kyrie, and I think Morris was on the floor. Not on the floor, obviously, was Smart, Brown, and a handful of draft picks. And I'm just thinking, if you could make an Anthony Davis deal with Smart, Brown, and a handful of draft picks and take out Marcus Morris, that'd be a pretty tough team to play with. Just thinking as I was watching the game today, just kind of daydreaming a little bit as you're kind of thinking about where to go. Didn't mean to make that as pull off the highway in this conversation, but it's just when you see that, it's like, man, this could get really crazy with that guy in the mix. But anyway, I think Morris I think they have a great flow right now. I don't see that why they would change based upon matchups. I think Baines is probably might be more important against Milwaukee. If he can stay with, I think that he will fit in fine. He may have a little bit larger role, and maybe less so for some other guys. We'll see.
I don't even want to talk about that.
I'm talking about it.
I'm so in love with Brown right now and the way that he's playing.
You've always been in love with Brown.
Well, no, I left his side a little bit. I kind of definitely went with Tatum as my favorite throughout this season.
You've still got the locket with his picture in it. I get it.
Dude.
The high top fade barely fits in the little locket, but it fits.
Oh, you're killing me, bro. All I'm saying is this. When he gets aggressive, look, he hit some major 3-pointers. He's taking the hardest defensive assignment, and he's learning to attack and pull up earlier when he knows that the full lane isn't there. They're so used to him going hard without even thinking, and now he's stopping and pulling up. He's getting so mature in his game. And he's willing to play a role. One of the things Brad said about Game 3 was he didn't force anything. Mm-hmm. He took what was given to him. He's just getting to that point. Sure. And now we're talking about spinning him out. And honestly, I really want Brown and Tatum to stay together. I want to see them grow together. I don't want, it's not Perk and Al Jefferson, right? Remember, we wanted those two to grow as the power forward and center of the future, but this is different. These two guys have the ability to be superstars in this league. 10 years from now, think about this, 10 years from now, neither one of them, is going to really be, they're going to be in the middle of their prime, maybe a little bit towards the end of it. That's 10 seasons of those two guys, getting better and better and better probably every single year, barring injury. And I'm having a hard time. The more I see Brown become more mature, I'm having a harder and harder time seeing him, or envisioning him in a different uniform.
I understand that. And I agree that play at the end of Game 2 where he draw the defense in and then kicked it out to Tatum in the corner for the 3. That's that progression that we've been looking at. He played a whale of a game. He's really had this. I'd say probably Game 4 was his weakest of all the games in this series, and all 4 he's made his presence felt. And the idea that Bill Simmons had early on that they couldn't even trade him away if they wanted to, I think we can safely put that one to bed. What an idiotic statement was.
That's ludicrous. There's only one player that was picked after Brown that I would potentially take instead of Brown, and it was the other. Ironic, yeah, and that's the player. If you remember, that was my B. I was like, if we can't get Brown, then I want Jamal Murray. Those were my 2 picks for that draft. Knowing what would be available at the Celtics, and knowing that, Ben Simmons was going to go. He went number 1 that draft, correct?
Yes,
it was Simmons, and then your boy from Duke, who. I mean, I would still take Brown over Ingram anytime. So,
well, and especially with what's going on with him with the blood clat issue, that's a whole nother.
Even
thing.
Then, though, even remove that from the scenario. Even as the player, it was exactly what Danny and everybody said. Brown's got an NBA ready body. And yet, he's a teenager. I mean, that, and he's gotten stronger. And again, these are all the things I think about. I mean, look, I get it. I get the Anthony Davis appeal. I understand it. I'm probably the only idiot who doesn't want to trade Brown for him, and all the different pieces. And again, one of the things that happened to this team this season is that the length of the rotation is long. And one of the benefits, just how you led into this, of Marcus Smart going down is the tighter rotation. And all of a sudden Terry's playing better. And all of a sudden Marcus Morris is playing better. And some of it's just being in the postseason, and we'll never be able to tease out which is causing what and to what degree and what percentage. That we'll all just have hunches. But, yeah, that 11-man rotation doesn't work. It just is too long. And it's funny because I remember we used to criticize Doc Rivers for having such a short rotation. Why doesn't he go to the young guys? Which makes a lot of sense during the regular season, except it didn't make a lot of sense this regular season for this Celtics team. And, we're fortunate enough to see them pulling these rotations together with the shortened up one. And so from that point of view and roster construction, it does make sense to kind of shorten it up. But look, Marcus Morris is going to be gone next year. I mean, this could be a year where you just don't have to get anybody in free agency. And you take, Morris out of it, and maybe you spin out, Rozier for a pick, and you still got basically the essence of this squad. But then you've got a 9-man rotation. I think the hardest part and the biggest lacking, and this is where I might budge on my stance by the end of the postseason, is they just don't have a big man in the middle. I love Baines, and Baines is definitely putting forth his best defensive effort, and he's getting the start, but he's not getting the finish. But man, they need more substance inside. And so that's where I may soften depending on how this all plays out as we watch the rest of the playoffs.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a question of where you want to allocate your assets, I guess, right? And so you look at Baines and you say, he's $4 million a year. He's performing adequately, more than adequately for what he's getting paid. It's a question of, okay, you've got a soon to be max player, in Jason Tatum, a max power forward / center in Al Horford, a soon to be probably, I'd say near max. I think Jalen's, pay situation is going to be very interesting to watch. Certainly maxing out Irving, maxing out Hayward. It's hard to figure out.
You can't figure out how you're going to pay everybody. I get it. I get it.
But you're right. So one of those has to go away effectively to bring in a bigger guy, Reed Anthony Davis, in my mind.
Yeah.
But
it could be Horford.
But it could, yeah. So who knows?
So we'll see. We're in the middle of the playoffs, so we don't want to drag that out. That's what we'll do between that, between the draft, basically.
Plenty of time.
And yeah, exactly. So plenty of time for that. I am going to tell everybody, with the second season underway in the NBA and the Celtics going to be squaring off against the Milwaukee Bucks. There's no way they're going to drop this baby. They might Monday night and they might take it in 5, but they've got that series essentially wrapped up. So the Celtics are going to square off against the Bucks in the second round. And I'm wondering, is your confidence high? Are you willing to place a wager and you don't know where to start? There is only one place to go to get in on all this action. Grab the odds and allow the experts at betonline.ag. Let them do the heavy lifting for you. Sports, live betting, virtual casino, you name it, betonline.ag is CLNS Media's preferred sportsbook online. If you're feeling lucky and you'd like to support our podcast, go to clnsmedia.com/CSL and use promo code CLNS50 for a 50% sign up bonus. That's CLNS50 at betonline.ag or go to clnsmedia.com/CSL. BetOnline.ag, your online sportsbook experts. And John, we've got to talk about the Kyrie stuff, and then we're going to preview the Milwaukee series. And the only reason we're going to bring up the Kyrie stuff is because offhandedly, before we got started recording, I said to you, Kyrie, there are just moments where the hot dogging just bothers me. And he really wasn't great shooting wise. I love his defensive effort. I mean, I've got to take my hat off to him. In the postseason, that extra level has been phenomenal. I mean, he's caused turnovers. He was in a mismatch, I think, at one point with Bogdanovich, and they never even exploited it. And then he knocked the ball loose. Like, look, hats off to the defensive effort from Kyrie. But there are just times when he just doesn't have it going offensively, and then he still jacks that 3 from 5 steps back. Like, that's the shot that's going to get him going, and it drives me nuts. There are times when he comes in and then he gets, it's not really an ISO because they don't set it up like they set up their ISOs, but he still kind of dribbles into that side of the floor and everybody clears out like an ISO, except he's left with a double team. And then there's nobody behind him for him to kick the pass out on. And that's when he really starts forcing, a couple of shots. And there are moments like that. And it's one thing when he's feeling it. It's like, hey, you know what, Kyrie, you can do no wrong. Everything's going to drop. It's like throwing the basketball into the pond. It's whatever. But when he's struggling, like he was in games 3 and 4. I mean, just offensively shooting wise, it bugs the crap out of me. I really wish he'd just keep moving the ball because honestly, the best thing that came out of games 3 and 4 on the road was the confidence of the rest of his teammates. So he should have kept feeding him, especially I felt like, they could have found, I know Brown only took what was given to him, but the doubles that Kyrie was seeing the entire game 3 should have created more opportunities for the hot hand. And I just want to see him exploit that more as we move forward.
Okay. I think that what we saw, I would agree that today was really a strong effort from Kyrie to knowing he doesn't have it going and finding the open guy. Number of instances today where, clearly he knew it just wasn't happening for him. He made the right play.
Except for that one early, I mean, come on. In the fourth quarter, he was like 4 steps back and like the defense hadn't even set and he was already jacking a 3.
Yeah, but it works. That's the thing. Like in terms of his percentages, he's like far and away like their best player, their best shooter. Those are high percentage plays. Those are good shots.
No, they're not.
NBA 2019. Justin, you need to get out of 1985. It
doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it right.
Yes, it does.
All right. So listen, find me the statistics that says Kyrie with 4 seconds off the shot clock in the possession from 4 steps back from 3-point land in a game where he's shooting, less than 40% from the field. Show me that is a good shot.
How many games have you seen this year where he's had a bad first half?
I already told you,
strong second half.
No. Plenty of them. As soon as he has it going, like I said, I preface this, when he's dropping it, like he's throwing a basketball into a pond, no big deal when he's feeling it, but not 4 steps back that early in a shot clock when you've got other players who are playing well and he's cold. That makes no sense to me.
He's trying to get himself going.
It's horrible. There are other ways.
Works, but it works for him.
It doesn't work because it didn't work today. He missed the shot and he still sucked down the stretch.
They call that a small sample size. That's exactly what that is. That's what that statistical anomaly is. It's a small sample size. You're taking one instance and you're saying, I mean, look, first of all, they won the game. They won a game by a decent amount. They swept him by 4 games. This was his worst game by far. Okay. His true shooting percentage for the series is 57%. Okay. His usage is 30%. The offensive rating is 116. Has the highest offensive rating by 13 points. His game score is 20. The next highest is Tatum. I mean, he is doing it all. And you're right. As a traditional point guard, he's not. The mold is gone. But look at what Harden's doing. I mean, if you think this is awful, you just start watching some Houston Rockets games and we'll have to lock you up. I mean, I don't even know how you would make it through this Rocket stuff live with,
when he is on fire, I have no problem with it.
But that's not the way the game's played.
Yeah, it should be. It's
not.
No, when you have this much
started.
No. When you have this much talent on your team and other guys are hitting shots and he's committed to playing defense the way he is, he doesn't need to jack shots like that to get himself going. He can get open shots by feeding the other players and moving the ball around. He can get the double team off his ass, or he can continue to draw the double team and never take a shot and make them look stupid. At some point, the defense is going to adjust. If everybody else on the team is going through a funk, and I'll even reference games 1 and 2, the low scoring efforts, you know what I mean? Brown didn't have it going. Tatum was still struggling. Both of those players got more aggressive on the road, trying to attack the rim and generate offense. Never mind the fact that they weren't hitting free throws. But, that whole thing, then I say go for it, Kyrie. Right? But when you've got 2 or 3 players that are taking advantages of mismatches, attacking in transition, generating offense, he's not going to win this on his own.
Okay.
Even if everybody else plays stellar defense. Other guys have to hit big shots like Hayward did in game 4.
Let me ask you a question. I agree with you. I agree with everything you just said there. What would you guess his percentage is before today's game? So he's entering today's game. What would you guess his shooting percentage from 3-point land was?
Kyrie's?
Yeah, Kyrie.
Probably 45.
50%.
Yeah.
His overall percentage was 45%. Okay. Now,
yeah, he's
does
hot.
that mean?
But that was heading into
hot.
Game 4. So what was it after Game 4?
So, but what? Well, I don't have the totals as of now. But I'm just saying, you're going into this game. Okay, you're in the flow. You are Kyrie Irving, right? You've made half of your threes. That's blistering. That's a blistering percentage. I mean, that's insane, right? At what point do you stop being Kyrie Irving? You know what I'm saying? Like, you're still...
He was 0 for 4 from three-point land and 4 for 13. He shot 30% today.
Yeah.
And he shot 0% from beyond the arc. That immediately takes those numbers down, right? Now, the whole team shot bad from beyond the arc. So, I don't think there was anybody who was necessarily, other than Hayward, somebody that you wanted to shoot from beyond the arc today, right? And so I get it. I get it. You want him to get off that way, but I think he should get off by attacking the paint. That's what Isaiah Thomas used to do. He would go and just.
God.
No, listen.
This is awful.
No.
You're
this
kidding
is
me.
Not awful.
This is a joke, right?
No. He should do it at the line. He should do it at the line.
Be more like Isaiah Thomas? Come on.
I'm just saying.
Oh my God. What he did. Okay, but what he's doing is better than Isaiah Thomas.
I agree. But
so
not
be
shooting,
better than the guy who's worse than you. He already is.
No. I'm just saying. No, not. Listen, manufacture offense by getting into the paint and getting to the free throw line. Jacking a 3 from 4 steps back when you're cold and shooting like crap. And honestly, even in Game 3, like he was cold in Game 3 too.
He took 13 shots today, Justin. That's
and he hit 4. No, so
what?
Why did he shoot that one crazy
adjusted.
One?
Like, one shot. So this is all because of one shot?
But he does it all the time.
All the time. He shot 13 shots today. He had a bad day. I won't disagree with you, but he didn't have a great game. He was a -10, the plus minus.
7 for 19 in Game 3 for 36% from the field. But you're right, 3 for 7 from the beyond the arc, almost 43%.
All I'm saying is, even 7. What was it? It was 9 for 17. Is that what you said?
No.
What did you say? 9 for what?
I'll tell you. 7 for 19.
Okay. 7
Which is
for
still
19.
36% from the field. That's what you want him to be from beyond the arc. But he was better from beyond the arc because in that game he was 43% from beyond the arc.
If he's taking 30 shots and is shooting them at a low percentage, I'm upset. Okay.
I see what you're saying. So you're fine because it was only 13.
I'm saying, yeah.
In Game 4. You're like, whatever. He got everybody else involved.
Arguably,
you might win. You might have just won that one. I think I can bite that.
Well, I'm just saying. Arguably, what I'd say is he should be shooting himself up to 20. Like, how many games are we going to win where Kyrie Irving is shooting 13 shots?
Actually, it could be a lot. If Hayward it could be representative of everybody else playing better and them playing as a team offensively and moving the ball, which is what we want.
Which is what we want, but we haven't seen a lot of evidence of until the last 3 games. So that kind of goes into the next
4
phase,
in the postseason. Right.
Well, that's the point, right? That's the whole point. Is what we're saying is there's a very clear demarcation point here, right? Which is before today, everything sucked. You and I were angry and bitter and frustrated, and I somehow had some sort of optimism that they were going to turn it around and play differently in this round.
Don't make it personal.
Everything we had. What? What's that?
I said, don't make it personal. I'm just kidding.
No, I'm just saying, like, I just thought that might happen. You said, I've seen 82 games of slop, of garbage, hot, I just didn't think you'd turn it.
And it's the 4-5 matchup. So you predicted that they'd, listen, you predicted that they'd win, but I predicted that the officials would make sure this went 7. Okay, that's specifically what I said. And you've already admitted that you agree with me that the officials did their best, put their best foot forward to that end.
No doubt. But that's, what I'm saying though is, it's very hard to judge what we think the Celtics are. Everybody who's going to talk about the next, I think this is kind of where we pivot to the next series, which is to say, okay, are we going to go by the last 4 games, which is who really we thought in large part. There's still
they're going to be somewhere in between because
are they?
Because the team that they just played You know,
Not
it was
great.
clearly not great and clearly on a downward spot. Outside of Detroit, the best matchup for the first round.
Oh,
By
no doubt.
far. By
No
far.
doubt.
Of all conferences. Here's the deal. The Celtics have played 3 games, I think, against the Bucks during the regular season. One at the very beginning, November 1st. That's right. The only one the Celtics won. Then they lost right before Christmas, 120-107, and obviously the nail biter in February, which was a 1-point loss, 98-97. So the Bucks have gotten the last 2. Mm-hmm. I guess the question is, you're saying which team are we going to see? I'll say this one thing, and I don't think it goes like this, but if that crappy Celtics team that 1-1 at the beginning of the season and still was struggling, you know, I thought they were doing pretty good around right before Christmas, but then they fell back again in the new year. But if the team in February, as much in disarray as they still were and without Hayward, still only loses a hotly contested 1-point loss, 98-97, if we even get a 10% kicker on that team, based on the last series and the fact that Hayward is better, that does start to edge this series that you can start to have some confidence in the Celtics taking it. Make no mistake, though, the Game 7 prediction definitely holds for this series against the Bucks. There's no way this one ends in 6. Are you going to tell me it's going to end in 6?
Yep.
You're going to say 6?
Yep.
You're going to say Celtics in 6?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they split. All right, so the way you're looking at this then is you're saying they split the first 2 in Milwaukee. Mm-hmm. So did Celtics take game 1 or game 2?
They take game 1.
They have to take game 1 on the split, though.
They don't have to.
Well, they do to get it done in 6, in my opinion, because having to win that many games in a row,
it's tough. Yeah.
Yep. So they take the first. It's got to be game 1, and everybody knows that. Anybody who's got the home court disadvantage knows that game 1 is their game. You know, that's the one. You take it early, you punch him in the mouth, you know, just like Kevin Garnett would say, punch the bully in the mouth, and then you just try to own home court the rest of the way. And if you could steal another one on the road, great. So you're saying 1-1, C's got to take game 1, and then they go back home for 2 games, right? It's not 2-3-2, it's 2-2-2-1, correct?
It's 2-2-1-1-1.
Oh, that's right. 2-2-1-1-1. The 2-3-2 is only in the finals. So then the Celtics get 2, and you're saying they take game 1, they lose, and then they win the next 2 at home. So you're saying that they go back. No. You're thinking they win 2 on the road.
I think they win 2 on the road.
So this series splits.
Mm-hmm.
This series splits through the first 3 games.
First 4 games.
I mean, first 4 games.
Yeah, I guess.
So, no, it's 4 games, 1-1 and 1-1.
You're going to win 1 and 5.
So they go back to Milwaukee, 2-2, and they take another one in Milwaukee and then win it at home in game 6.
That's right.
No way.
Yep.
2 games in Milwaukee, games 1 and 5 in Milwaukee.
Tell me something. What worries you about playing in Milwaukee?
Nothing about the Milwaukee fan base. Definitely the officials.
The team. What have the Milwaukee Bucks done? Okay, they have played.
They won the Eastern Conference, and they want this series to go.
What did they win?
7.
You know what? That's like all those banners they have hanging up in the Indianapolis Colts. You know, or it's like, look, they were a historically great team. Tip your cap to them. It's wonderful. This is a different season. And I think that's when we go back to which Celtics team this is. This is not the same regular season. And the Bucks are not getting tested against the Pistons. This is weird. Frankly, I think it's a problem for them.
I think it would be awesome.
Get pushed. I think it get it kicked. I think they did get that push. You know, I think that this is exactly what the Celtics needed.
You feel like they got tested enough to keep their confidence high and be ready and battle tested, whereas Milwaukee's you feel like taking a walk in the park. It almost wouldn't be bad, though, for Milwaukee to lose game 4 on Monday night. That would give the Celtics just a little bit more time to game plan, a little bit more rest, and it would just be like one of those things where, we didn't close it out. You know what I mean? It would just plant that little seed into Milwaukee that would be super beneficial. And then I'm thinking the Celtics definitely get game 1 on the road, or that's definitely an opportunity to take that one. But I think I still think it's going 7, but I do think the Celtics win one on the road, probably game 1, but I think they lose one at home too.
Yeah. They're good. Look, the Bucks are good. Giannis is good. Giannis is gonna be a load and really challenging
Do you think
to
the
keep out of the
Boston
paint.
playoff atmosphere is going to get in his head? Is that why you feel so confident about home games?
I absolutely do. I think that the Celtics fans are going to be ready. I think this is not quite going up against LeBron, latter day LeBron, Heat LeBron, where everybody hated him. This is like early days going against LeBron. This is like, that Pierce, Cavs, that the one that went 7, that type of, okay, he's not a bad guy, but we definitely want to beat him, beat him badly. They respect how good he is, but they're going to try to get in his head. And I think that's exactly what this is going to play out. I think Brogdon is a big problem, for the Bucks not to have. I mean, right now, they're starting.
He did such
a
great job just kind of directing the offense when it wasn't in Giannis's hands.
And he's dangerous.
He is definitely a glue guy. Yeah.
Yeah, he's dangerous.
Do they have Dellavedova? Is that their kind of, is that their light version? Of Brogdon?
Smart?
Is that, of Brogdon?
No,
who's the facilitator offensively without Brogdon?
Well, I mean, George Hill, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
I don't know who it is. I don't know who you would go to if you're.
Middleton's
Milwaukee.
a shooter, but he's not going to be the one. It looks like Bledsoe. Is the guy that they have in that spot. But
this is the thing. I don't think that they don't have anybody who does what he does. You know what I mean? Yeah. I don't think that there's now we don't have Brogdon, so now we plug this guy into the mix. I mean, Sterling Brown's playing 24 minutes for them. Pat Connaughton's playing 26 minutes for them. Ilyasova's playing 22
depth's an
minutes.
issue.
Their depth
at the very least, the 7-game does tip a little bit the Celtics' way because of that. Do you think this series is going to be super physical?
It's going to be
the Celtics need to make it physical, right?
I think they need to be physical with Giannis. I think they really need to try as much as they can to make him want to shoot, to pull him out, keep him out of the paint, try to force him to try to think he can hit that 15 to 20 foot shot. And if he does, I don't know much more you can do with it, but Al Horford is the key. This series is about Al Horford.
Yep, he's got some swings in how he's defended Giannis too, right? Like there are times when he looks like he can lock him down, and then there's times where it's just like his lunch is getting eaten.
And then on the other side, Bledsoe is going to have to guard Kyrie. Somehow, I don't think Sterling Brown's going to be that guy. I think they're going to have to put Bledsoe on him. And if that's the case, I like our chances in that case. Then it's kind of okay, how do the chess pieces fall? Middleton was incendiary last year. He was completely ridiculous. But I like what we have with Tatum and Hayward and Brown to either throw at him or
I just think we got to be athletic. I really want him to come out of that half-court thing, force turnovers, attack in transition. Like they've got to turn this into what we've always loved about that Houston Rockets matchup in the past, right? Just up and down the floor. They got to play that Western Conference style of ball, I think, against Milwaukee. It could hurt them. They could definitely get beat up a little bit in transition defense themselves. But, man, if they can get Milwaukee playing a little loose without somebody to kind of rein them in and pull it together, they could really score a couple of several baskets in bunches that would really help them establish a good lead or take a lead. That first set of substitution. So Giannis is probably going to play most of the games, don't you think? He's probably going to be like at 39 minutes a game, 38, almost guaranteed.
Well, I was going back and looking at the box scores. So he played 36 against Boston in the first game. He played 36 in the third game, and he only played 33 in the second game, which was the blowout.
It was a blowout. Yeah, it was a
So
blowout.
it's not as if they're not used to him playing high volume of minutes. And the blowout game, I think, is its own category. Not to say it doesn't count, doesn't say that couldn't happen again, but I really think
Celtics
those
were in a
tight
weird,
games,
weird spot. Yeah,
they were. I think those two games, the close ones, are really much more indicative of where the series will go. And what's interesting as well, in both of those games, he hit a negative plus minus in both games. So Giannis, he has had issues with the Celtics, and there doesn't seem to be at this point that he's figured out how to get around it. At some point he might. It might be now. But my sense is the Celtics are rising. The Bucks may be great, but have the Celtics overtaken them? The Milwaukee Bucks have been great for 86 games. The Celtics have been good for 4. Can they make up that gap of not having that camaraderie and that flow and that chemistry that Milwaukee clearly exhibits? Though without Brogdon, but the Celtics too are without Marcus Smart, who is a key piece.
All right. Well, that's going to do it because we're going to be back in a week and we'll be able to talk a lot more. And we'll at least have a game 1 and likely a game 2 in the books by the time you and I sit back and talk about where things are at. So we'll be able to kind of check ourselves and see how accurate we were. But this broadcast will be available on demand on the CLNS Media mobile app. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter at CSL_Justin and at CSL_Duke. A heartfelt thank you to everybody for tuning in. And remember that you can help support the show by subscribing to Celtic Stuff Live on iTunes and Stitcher. We'd love it if you gave us a rating and a review because your feedback is important to all of us here at the show. And for staff writer Samuel Elias, executive producer Larry H. Russell, I didn't let you have your shout out. For staff writer Samuel Elias,
Sammy,
executive producer Larry H. Russell, and the founder of CLNS Media, Nick Gelso, and of course my co-host John Duke, I'm Justin Poulin. Thank you for listening to this week's edition of Celtic Stuff Live.
Celtic Stuff Live.
So, looking at Toronto, it seems like they're going to run away. And I know we're recording this, but it looks like they're going to run away with it against the Magic. So I feel like they're definitely going to clear that series. And Philly looks to be in the driver's seat in theirs as well. So I don't want to take anything for granted, but I think that, it definitely becomes Philly and Toronto a little bit behind the determination, obviously, of the Celtics and the Bucks. But how do you think that one falls? I mean, Philly's playing pretty strong. And I mean, they didn't even have Embiid for a game. At the same time, Brooklyn's got that whole mess there. They're super pissed and feel like they got jobbed. You think Philly's playing strong enough that this falls the way that you and I wanted to, where the Celtics got, they get the Bucks right. Maybe before they're fully battle tested in the postseason, they beat them up a little bit, they get out, and then all of a sudden they're playing Philly. We've got Philly's number, but that budding rivalry is still 100% in play. That becomes the Eastern Conference Finals. It was definitely the most entertaining series. I mean, I know the Cleveland Cavaliers one was great, but don't think for a second, even though the Celtics won it in short order, that Philly series wasn't one of the most entertaining ones in the Eastern Conference playoffs last year, and that was without these players. You got to wonder, man. I don't know. So do you think this is still heading Philly's way, and that our master plan will be enforced?
What I worry about is Embiid's knee, because him not playing that game was really I think in large part Philly plays better with only one of those two guys there. So
how about Tobias Harris stepping up though?
He did. He played great.
Whew.
He was amazing. You know,
right?
I don't know if they have enough to get by Toronto, but I think that if Embiid is right, he could really cause some problems there for Toronto. Oh, and that the only thing you can root for there is you want a long series and you want it to be Philly. That's the goal on the other side. But
you want these first rounders to go a little long
if they can.
Then that second one,
sure.
I mean,
whatever it takes to get Toronto exhausted. Because honestly,
Kawhi scares me against us. I'm just going to be honest with you. Yeah, I just feel like he's so strong defensively. He can really, I know he's strong offensively too, but that's not what scares me. The Celtics have to put up with strong offensive players all the way through the postseason. Sure. It's just his defense has the ability to change the complexion of the game. 100%.
I think that, he's a great player. I mean, nothing to take. He's somebody you worry about him. You always worry about him. if whatever's happening, wherever the ball is, you are concerned about where Kawhi is. So that's one side of it. I worry about really the whole thing. Siakam, they just play with an energy and a ferocity.
Yeah, Siakam's killing him.
He really is. I mean, there is offensively, they are just really, really strong. And they aren't singularly focused, so they make it very difficult to defend. Not unlike Boston.
You mean
really.
they don't jack threes from? No,
oh boy. Oh boy. No, but I mean, in all seriousness though, they are. That's, whether it's Van Vliet or you want to talk, Danny Green could get hot, or, there's just so many
there's some
different
depth there.
weapons
Yep,
there.
there's some depth
just
there.
like Boston, and so but no question, they don't have anybody who's like Embiid, and there's nothing really that Kawhi can do about Embiid. So if Embiid gets going, he'd be a problem. What I worry about is that Philly somehow starts to figure it out, and then they don't play as stupid as they do when they play against us.
Yep. It's almost,
we'll
you're saying that the Toronto series could battle test them so that they're ready for the Celtics.
It could. But I still want our plan to go into effect because I still think that's our best.
That's the best bet.
That's the best foot forward is to see Philly and then.
Isn't it funny? Like the one team that we're all scared of, it's not Golden State, it's not Houston. As an educated fan base, how is it that the team that never gets it done in the postseason is the one that we always put the asterisks on in terms of our ability to beat them? Right. And how funny is that? Well, anyway. TBD, we're not there yet, but we'll hopefully be there soon. So this next series is going to be one hell of a one to watch.
Absolutely. Should be fun. Long and fun. Can't wait.